Some days when I do this live stream, I have to be really, really concerned about lighting. If I happen to have shaved my head recently, I'm a little bit worried that the reflection from my bald head is going to blind the camera. So if any of you are watching this live, I would very much appreciate something in the chat box to tell me that you can hear me. And if you can hear me, that means you can see something other than the reflection from my shiny head. But I'm not here to talk about my shiny head. It is technically an optical effect, so it falls within the general realm of the types of things I talk about, reflections. But we're here to talk about hunting optics. I spent the bulk of this year focusing a lot more on the precision stuff. I shot a bunch of matches. To date, I think I shot 8 matches this year, something like that. Couple of local ones, the rest elsewhere. And I had an absolute blast doing this, but now I have really kicked off hunting season. Last weekend, my daughter turned 14, and on her birthday, she went on her first hunt and got an antelope, which makes me a very, very proud father these days. And that is sort of the start of the hunting season. As far as I'm concerned, summer antelope is more or less where we start. I have failed miserably in terms of trying to draw tags this year, so did my kids. But I do have a mule deer and elk hunt in Montana at the end of October, so I was thinking through the options and what to take with me. And it occurred to me that I should really, at the start of the hunting season, address a little bit hunting optics, the do's and the don'ts, and a little bit on what to choose in different budgets for different types of hunting, and how to set them up. All right, Gun Totem Minnesota is here. Andrew, good to see you, sir. Mr. Cunt Bucket is here. Couldn't do it without you. Andrew, if you want to hop on a live stream, I can send you a link. You are out in the hunting boonies, so this could be interesting. But unless Andrew decides to, Cantoti, Minnesota decides to join us, I am going to bring on Mr. Slavguns, who has graciously agreed to join me today to provide something of a counterpoint. He tried to weasel out of this by claiming that he's a shooter but not a hunter, but none of that worked. So here he is. And I'm gonna you have.
Hello, everybody. Let's try that one more time. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. It says my microphone's on, although it is a little bit slow. So it was working.
No, it's on. Now it's on.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So hello, Mr. Clean. Hello, Mr. Clean's audience. Although I don't think your head is shiny today, no matter what you say. So I absolutely appreciate being here. It's fun to actually be here. And no, you're right. I could not weasel my way out of this. I am a habitual. I hunt paper.
It's not that shiny. Okay, I shaved it last night.
Fantastic. No, it's fine. Your head is beautiful. I'm not going to embarrass you beyond that.
That's not what I was hoping to hear either, but okay. Yeah. Okay, Andrew, I'm gonna send a link to you on Discord once my internet starts working properly.
Yes. And actually, let me know, is it his internet or my internet? So like sometimes it's
where I live.
I would say, is it his internet or my internet? Because I also do live in the boonies.
Yeah.
I will say.
So guys, which one of us starts looking fuzzy and freezes? Is it Slavguns or me?
I will say, if you are worried about the shininess of your head, having a fuzzy internet connection does add a matte finish to your forehead.
I did not hear any of that. It's all go. Yeah, okay. It's like a stream designed specifically for me. All right, let's do a stream for you. Okay. So yeah, Jimothy is saying it's my internet.
All right.
I fucking hate Xfinity. Fiber is coming. I even paid them extra. I even paid the fiber company extra money to hook me up the first once they get to my street, but they're still not here yet.
See, you're
Xfinity has
lucky.
been an absolute shit show lately.
See, in the Northeast, we wish for having Xfinity or something like that because a lot of the people are still here on Frontier DSL. We use a T-Mobile mobile internet. I will say it's greatly improved. This is the second time I've had it, and it actually works pretty decent. As opposed to the first time I think I got it, I could not do one live stream at
Oh
all.
fuck.
Well, I wasn't ready for this, but if you want me to do the entire live stream, I suppose I could do that. And since I know you're drinking, I rushed my steak dinner and
Yeah, give it a shot. Maybe you can.
all right. So what are we talking about today? Actually, you know what? Once you gave me the invite, and especially like honestly over the last week in particular, I've been going to the range quite a bit, catching up on the
I can
videos
either.
and it. Okay. Well, so whether he hears me or not, the audience is still here, so we'll make it beneficial for you guys.
Fuck.
I will say one of the reasons I'm like, okay, I think I actually want to have a good conversation about this because hunting is something that I've been planning on. Right now, my extent to hunting is the pests and environments that are in our garden. However, even going to the range over the last 3 or 4 days and let's say shooting calibers that I would say outside of my NRL 22 and PRS rimfire or the ELR world, I'm kind of thinking, well, if I was to build a dedicated hunting gun, would I actually want to use a reticle that would be considered a hunting appropriate reticle? And is there even such a thing anymore? So that is an interesting topic. And when Mr. Clean, actually, it looks like his connection is clearing up a little bit, or at least like he's getting luster back. I'm gonna get banned from the stream.
All right,
But
that's shiny.
but he started it.
Working on it.
Do you want to possibly restart Rumble Studio? Or close down the Pornhub tabs?
I may have to.
Sorry.
Okay, I am not seeing Andrew's. Fuck me. Okay, Max, stay in. I'm gonna restart my.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you for and welcome for joining the Slav Guns live stream. Tonight we're going to be drinking. What I have is a beautiful glass of Christum Pinot Noir. I believe it is Willamette Valley. A little bit expensive, but it's not bad. No, but honestly, I'm like really, really grateful for the invitation. I love being here. And especially since I believe this is my first live stream that I'm on in a couple of, hey, look, you're good. You have your luster back. It's still
I
a
just
little slow.
texted everybody in my family to get off the internet because we're all sharing. But
Okay. Your audio is still popping a little bit.
It's gonna drive me bananas.
A little bit. Knowing you, he would. Knowing me, it's driving me nuts that I'm a guest and I'm on the left side of the left side of the screen. Wait, no, that's the left. Wait, it's reversing me. Look at this. Wait, hold on. That side. There we go. I'm on this side of the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. So because I restarted the client, you now ended up on the left. So Andrew, Mr. Guntoji Minnesotan, I couldn't find your email. I sent you the link to get in here on the as a Discord direct message. So for our Discord community. So just log in and pick it up there, or you can email me and I'll reply.
Wow, your audio. Hold on. Am I like watching this replay somewhere else? Like your audio and your video are like 5 seconds delayed. And we just got the yawn before you actually yawned. No, wait.
I'm gonna try to find some inner peace here. It's gonna be hard.
You can find that inner peace in that bottle. Wow, I'm just on the tear today. So for those that didn't notice, I've upped my dosage of creatine. So like I think it's going up, and my mental health is improving.
Still a long way to normal, though.
Actually, I think the internet's getting better.
I sure hope so. I hope so. Anyhow, so we'll Y2K era dial-up, you jackass. I am on cable, mind you, that used to work, and then Xfinity went to shit.
And I'm on cellular.
Despite the significant amount of money I'm paying them. You on cellular? See, I live in Albuquerque.
T-Mobile Internet. T-Mobile Business Internet. T-Mobile Business Internet. It's only $30 a month.
Yeah, I've tried it here. It was slower than dial-up.
Wow.
New Mexico.
All right.
Really special.
I just got a text message. I'm gonna lay it off. I think I'm pouring it on a little too much. But I love you. You know I love you.
Who did you get a text message from?
I'm not saying.
Hey.
It's someone we both like and respect. It's someone we both like and respect.
Is somebody I like and respect?
I'm not going. I am not opening up that Pandora's box. I am not.
Yeah. Well, I know that I like and respect the guy. I didn't know you did. Okay.
Oh, that is cold. All right, we're going to start a podcast here, like Howard Stern level podcast. I don't know about you, but we haven't talked anything about guns. But I will say, now that your internet's good.
All right. Let's get okay. So I'll try to speak slowly. If my internet gets garbled and you guys can't understand me,
see, I think so,
please put something in the chat box.
You started saying I'm going to start speaking slowly, and then I was fully expecting, because you're all a bunch of morons and I'm the smartest guy in the room. That's what I was fully expecting to hear.
I thought that was reasonably understood, and I didn't have to spell it out for politeness' sake.
And your T-shirt is very much appropriate. Yes, but in full fairness, I'm very grateful to be here because after coming to, I just literally got back from the range, and I have some questions to ask you because I think, thinking more about it, coming from my background, I don't think I even buy the whole notion of a traditional hunting reticle.
Ooh, well, it's going to be an interesting discussion. All right, Andrew's here. Let me bring him on. There you go. There he is. Okay.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Just in case you guys are wondering, I know he looks relatively puny on video. He's about a head taller than I am.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I'm about a head taller than Max. In case you're wondering.
I'm vertically challenged. I do not run away from the fact. I embrace it. I'm 5'8.5".
Yeah, I'm gravitationally challenged, or advantage, or disadvantage. I actually don't know which way it goes. But either way, since the age of 14, I've only been growing in circumference. It's just sort of how this works. But all the general purpose jackassery aside, Andrew, thank you for joining us. You hunt, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
What do you hunt?
I'll be doing whitetail and a lot of small game and some birds this year. And I might get into trapping. I've been doing furs the last couple of years, and just getting a little bit more into big game. I guess varmints, coyotes, that sort of thing are always on the docket.
Okay, good. All righty. So let's talk about big game first. Since you joined us, I'm going to put you on the spot for a moment. And before we start talking about specific optics and recommendations, what do you look for in a big game hunting scope?
Well, the primary place that I'm hunting, you have to understand that Minnesota is split up generally into two halves. The two halves would be open plains and prairie in the south. That's south of where I am. And in fact, Stephen came to visit a while ago. Stephen's a big hunter, and I went to visit him in Rochester, Minnesota. And he said, "Your state is so flat." there's nothing here. He just thought, like, this is an ugly state. And I said, yeah, down here it is. There's not much. It's just flat. That area, somebody would have a different response than what I'm going to say right now, because they have some limitations. For me, I can use center fire rifles. There's no limitations on what I use. And that changes things a lot depending where you're at. If you're in Iowa, southern Minnesota, or you're north of what's called 95 up here, I can use center fire. I can take longer shots, but the topography changes significantly where I'm at, closer to Lake Superior and a lot of the hill country up here. It's very hilly and there's trees everywhere. You have a lot of deciduous forest and they're very thick and very, very dense. And so you would be lucky most of the time to get a 300 or 400 yard shot. Typically, my deer shots, actually every single deer shot I've taken was under 100 yards. Every single one that I've taken. And that's preferable. I'm trying to drop things quick. But even if I wanted to, I would have to work for a 300 yard shot. So when it comes to hunting optics, that practicality, just pragmatically looking at what I'm interested in for magnification level, focal plane, reticle design, that's always been something of a consideration for me, because although I shoot long range matches, I have to drive to those locations to shoot long range matches. Those are set up, cleared out areas. Typically for me, people talk about upgrading from the old 3-9 scope. You don't need to upgrade from the variability of 3-9 power in the areas where I'm hunting. In fact, most people still don't see the value, except for they're still shooting 1-inch tubes. They're still shooting duplex reticles. And as the caliber selection has increased and people are taking 100 or 200 yard shots, not having exposed turrets or reticles with information in them has limited them a little bit. And people are trying to be more precise. They're shooting more interesting calibers than ever before. The hillbilly down the street shooting a 7 PRC, which he's relatively caught up with calibers. The guy over here who invented the backcountry, well, he didn't invent it. He's like number 2. He's over here. And so we got some interesting mix in our area, and that would be a representation of myself. I don't need more than a 2-12 right now. Not to go into brands too much and all that, because we're going to wait.
Go for it, yeah.
The 2.5 to 15 from Tract is perfect. It's perfect.
Which one? Which version do you have?
The first focal plane, not the Eagleman version. I have an MRAD version with the a little bit thicker subtensions. And as much as I like shooting,
I have it. I have that one.
Yep. Yeah, as much as I like shooting dot reticles for almost everything, I shoot that scope so well for hunting application. And the fact that it has a very near parallax allows me to take those shots when deer are 15 yards away on 2.5 power. And yes, it happens. Yeah. I can take a super close shot. So I'm actually over the top about that general design. And then 15 power is going to darken up a little bit early morning, late at night. So I would probably keep it to 10 power on that scope. But if I had that peak opportunity at 200 or 300 yards and I'm in the prone for whatever reason, and there's not a snowbank in front of me, which is very rare. But if that happens, I can identify, I can see which deer is which. And I can take that exact same optic and put it on my other rifle and varmint hunt with it. And there's where a little heavier magnification for me actually makes sense, because I'm typically either walking, I can knock it down, or I'm taking really long shots on varmints. So that's just a little bit of my philosophy right now.
Very good. So, Mr. Slevguns, did that give you any feedback in terms of why we still need occasionally traditional hunting reticles?
Yes and no, not so much. And here's an interesting part. I mean, and it's great that Andrew brought up the diversity of even Minnesota, how it's almost 2 separate states. I know with all my hunting buddies, or like even in my case, like in my property, I mean, like I can walk out. Actually, just even earlier today, I was expecting the UPS man, and the deer ran out in front of me. So when guys go out and saying, "Hey, I went in my deer blind, and I was there for 6 hours, and I couldn't get anything," I mean, like, just walk outside of my property at like 3 o'clock and they're going to run right into you. So I know in the Northeast, the vast majority, I mean, there's trees everywhere. The vast majority of the shots are well within, let's say, 100 yards or so, because anything past that, it's going to be more. And in that case, I'm glad that Andrew brought up like something as versatile as a 2.5 to 15. In my mind, the question then became, and as soon as he said 3x9, the first thing that popped onto my head was a Remington 700 and 30-06, because that's what my granddaddy used to use. And
okay, we don't say on this show we do not say the R word.
Which one is the Remington part?
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right. That's a new one for me. So I've been out of the.
Sorry, when I was a young man, somebody from Remington touched me in an inappropriate place, and I hold grudges.
All right, so let's say
But
700 pattern firearm. But here's basically the question. So I'm like, I absolutely appreciate the fact that now we have LPVOs that are appropriate and used for a lot of hunting situations and friends. I know more people are going towards the first focal plane reticle rifle scope markets, and even say something as versatile as a 2.5 to 15, or even like a 3 to 18. That it just seems like, okay, well, this is really, really good tool that you can use for everything. So the people that still kind of go the 3 to 9 or anything else like that, or particularly like a regular crosshair reticle, is that because that's the way it's been done forever? And or is it that your typical hunter or somebody who's getting into it now would not be like, they would be easily confused by a slightly, I'm not going to say like a tree style reticle, but even like a reticle with hash marks would confuse them to the point, and they literally just need a crosshair? Because I know both of you shoot competitions and matches and such like that, and it might be completely different for West Coast hunting, where some of the guys are going 500, 600, 700 yards. But I can't imagine, with my level of experience now, and just kind of like even like once you start using a first focal plane reticle rifle scope with a reticle that actually gives you some information, to use anything else beyond that.
So I have a really quick. Sorry, go ahead, Ilya.
Say what you want to say, and then.
All right, my
I'll
commentary
offer a little
is
bit of a counterpoint.
okay. My commentary is very brief. Yes, some people are still intimidated by information, but ever since the average guy, even the FUDs, have ARs out here, and they all went out, it seems like, and got something with holdover based reticles, caliber specific holdover based reticles. They were introduced to the phenomenon of information in the reticles. And now that a lot of those guys have prismatics or 1-6s, the primary arms 1-6 with information in it, I just see a lot of those from people that I normally wouldn't have expected it from. With that changing, I see a lot more openness, like really quickly in the last 2 years, really quickly, a huge amount of people who were satisfied with a lever gun with open sights now went out and got an ultralight rifle, and they spent more money than they've ever spent on a rifle. They got into a modern caliber, and then they didn't want to leave it outfitted with an old 1-inch tube optic. Nothing against 1-inch tube scopes. Actually, I think that's awesome to have lightweight scopes. It makes a lot of sense. But yeah, that would be my experiences. Some people are still intimidated, but the vast majority just need contrast in the reticle to contrast. Like I used to shoot SWFAs for years. SWFAs have a very thin subtension, which is awesome, but trying to contrast that on a deer is a little tricky. If I was to take the 2.5 to 15, yeah, there you go. If I was to take the 2.5 to 15, and I can't remember what the reticle subtension thickness is on that off the top of my head. It's got to be like 0.5 or 0.6, something like that. That is so much easier to contrast. And then guys like illumination. That's a thing now, which seems to have pushed a lot of people from the old century into modern optics and accepting the new reticle. But I'll let Ilya take it and probably give a better answer.
Not necessarily a better answer. So these are all very good answers. Unlike these gentlemen who roam the wooded hinterlands, I live out west, right? From where we hunt, usually you can look in either direction and see a few miles.
Wow.
And one of the reasons we have such a proliferation of precision-oriented hunting scopes these days is that Western hunting in the last couple of decades, maybe a little bit less, has become A, greatly romanticized, B, well, very expensive, and C, somehow that gets the lion's share of attention because that's where you get the big elk, that's where you get the trophies, that's where you get the mountain adventures, and there's certain romance to it that people have really bought into. So one of the things that I'm seeing is that increasingly more and more rifles are set up for Western hunting and never necessarily taken out west because it is expensive to go hunt out west. If you're from out of state, it's hard to draw a tag. You're gonna go try to hire a outfitter. The moment you started hiring an outfitter anywhere along the Rocky Mountain states, you're spending some serious money. And once you resign yourself to spend that kind of money, you go, okay, I'm gonna go spend this much money and show up with a $200 329 scope, and everybody ends up with a fancy rifle and a fancy scope. In the grand scheme of things, there's nothing really wrong with it per se, right? Because a rifle that will work out west is generally going to work just about everywhere else most of the time. There are some exceptions to that, and that's why I'm very happy that Andrew brought up the business of the reticle. The reticle matters quite a lot. The way to choose a magnification range for your hunting scope is to start. Tube diameter doesn't hugely matter. Most things don't hugely matter. Most people are looking at it as, okay, well, how high of a magnification I can get. But that's not really a very good way to think about a hunting scope. Yeah, think about hunting scope, you should be thinking, okay, is the low end magnification enough for my purposes? Okay. Because if you had been able to locate that animal, which you will be doing with your binoculars, which we should talk about, and if you can figure out where that animal is, unless it's something absolutely crazy exotic, which does happen up in the mountains here, you do not need a huge amount of magnification to hit an animal. Everybody talks about 700 yards shots, and relatively few people do it or should do it. I'm a late onset hunter, but I don't know if you guys noticed, I have a mildly obsessive personality. Anything that I do, I end up doing with relative dedication. Somewhat. For example, this year I decided to start shooting matches, and I shot my first match in January, and I shot my 8th match last month. So, and of those 8 matches, only 2 are local. So right? I've shot matches in California, Arizona, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana this year. So, but anyhow, so not to interrupt, let me finish my point.
Okay.
Of course. Go ahead.
So if I may interject, I mean, and you brought up a great point. I mean, you're talking about, I mean, you brought up the whole Western hunt, almost like a dream for gun owners. And before I even mentioned that, one of my notes that I had that I wanted to bring up is to acknowledge the fact that as people, as content creators, we are blessed. We are blessed in the fact that we will be able to do and own and experience things that 99% of gun owners will never be able to. So, and it's like a problem. Like, okay, like I'm going to go out to the range. It's like, I'm like, okay, well, which Tractoric scope do I want to put on my rifle? Or like, which tripod do I bring? Or like, which firearm do I bring? To the point that I'm like, oh, wow, I'm going for my stuff. I'm finally hitting some of those metrics that I'm like, I think I might have a problem, to the point that I'm looking at putting Apple AirTags on things so I can locate them. And then, so like, my first question of that is like, okay, well, what amount? So obviously, first focal plane reticle rifle scopes, the cool stuff like the Razor LHT, like all of that, all the sexy stuff that I'm sure we're going to come up as recommendations. Well, we bring that up because it is well within our budgets, or better yet, I mean, let's be honest, as content creators, companies will be more than happy to send a lot of those products out. The vast majority of gun owners are not going to be in that position, and they are living to paycheck. The economy is getting worse. And they literally might have a fixed budget they have to deal with, that all they can purchase is going to be that sub $300-400 rifle scope.
Mm-hmm.
And to tap that off, so I mean, you branch like, okay, the Western Hunt thing, where that comes up, so obviously this industry that we're in is all about selling that dream, whether it's the latest fandangled cartridge. So in the last 5 years, how many cartridges were made semi-spec with the entire intention of, you can take down an elk at 700 yards, you can take down an elk at 1,000 yards, and you can take down an elk at a mile, or like something ridiculous like that. And now you have gun companies who are catering to, like, hey, here's a rifle package so you can go hunting and take down that elk at over 1,000 yards, and our computer will do everything for you. And yeah, by the way, that's going to be $7,000. So it's like, I mean, like, I think like part of it, I mean, like, we are a little bit to blame for ourselves, because it seems like the industry is like, it's no longer sexy to produce a good quality optic at an attractive price point. And seemingly, like, once we figured out that we can produce a decent quality optic at a decent price, now it's truly about how far can we push this, and whatever the price is, that's whatever the price is. And then you have the influencers that come in and kind of promote that, and then for everybody else, it's truly about keeping up with the Joneses.
Well, keeping up with the Joneses is really human nature. To address something you mentioned, to humanely take down an elk at a mile or further, you generally need the types of things I do for my day job. That may be an elk or a herd of elk, or the mountain with elk on it, one of them. But that having been said, you laugh, it's a lot of fun. I have some videos. But regardless,
I'm not going there. I'm telling you, the cretine's really kicking in. Like my mental wit there. There's like 10 jokes that are like right in there that I want to say, but I'm not going to.
I have a fantastic filter.
Oh, go for it.
And he's the pastor.
Yeah.
Or minister.
Yeah. Andrew is a religious and civilized man, and then there is me. But anyhow, that having been said,
do you want me to get Aaron on? I'm sorry.
No matter where you are, west or anywhere else,
Ilya, your connection's breaking up.
He's very mature. But again,
yeah, a little bit. It's a little bit choppy.
When you talking about hunting scopes again, sorry, I'll do the best I can. One of these days, fiber is going to come here and grace my house. But I've been doing many live streams while I'm on the road in different hotels. I kid you not, sometimes that works better.
Yep.
Okay, Xfinity.
Okay, it seems like it's okay now.
Even out west, when you're trying to find something out there, even out west, when you're trying to find something out there, if you ever shot in an elk hunter match, you know how different it is to find something in your binoculars and then find it again in your rifle scope. That's oftentimes no picnic. You still need to have relatively usable low-end magnification. When it comes to actually shooting something, it's nice to have high magnification when the conditions allow for it. But one of the things we do not appreciate enough is that a magnification in terms of its usability stuff is multiplicative, not additive. What I mean is that the difference between 3x magnification and 6x is a factor of 2. To go another factor of 2 up, it's not 6 to 9, it's 6 to 12. The difference between 3 and 6 is perceptually the same as the difference between 6 and 12. And from there, difference between 6 and 12 is the same as between 12 and 24, right? So if you're, for example, talking about a scope that's 3 to 15 power versus 3 to 18 power, and you're sitting there looking at specs on the internet, you're going, I really need that 18 and that 15 is not enough. Yeah, that's probably bullshit. Okay. As you go into the high magnification ranges, because it is multiplicative, everything starts looking a little bit similar. But low-end magnifications is where it really matters. Difference between a scope that bottoms out on 6 versus bottoming out on 3 is extremely significant. That is a factor of 2, right? That makes a very big difference. That also brings us to the point of where we talk about reticles. As Andrew pointed out earlier, you want a reticle that you can actually see well enough to aim with. And this is where front focal point scopes tend to be relatively weak.
Okay.
Because on low powers, the reticles tend to get thinner. We work around it with magnification and some occasionally clever reticle designs. It's not always a panacea. So the idea is that if you are setting up your rifle for hunting, you really need to be honest with yourself and think a little bit about what you're going to do. If you are never going to take a shot past 250, 300 yards with one of the modern, relatively flat shooting cartridges, you probably should get a relatively simple reticle at the second focal plane, because the reticle visibility is going to make it or break it. When the light gets low, right, and you do not have the ability to go on very high magnification, low light is another reason why low magnification is important, where the exit pupil is quite large. When the light gets low, reticle visibility is everything. For probably a couple of decades now, one of the interesting things we saw with many scopes was that the image quality was good enough to see what you're shooting at in pretty impressively low light. However, the reticle visibility was not quite there. You know, we all think that there was this transition from 1-inch scopes to 30 millimeter or later 34 millimeter scopes. We all think that it was the biggest driver was tactical stuff, increased adjustment range, and it wasn't. It was a big deal for going to 34 millimeter, though honestly a lot of it was marketing. But one of the biggest reasons of the transition from 1-inch tubes to 30 millimeter tubes was incorporation of illumination. You actually need a little bit of extra real estate to get the illuminator in there. There were very few rifle scopes with 1-inch tubes that were properly illuminated. There were some, but it started taking real estate and getting into things. It was much easier to incorporate illumination into a scope with a 30 millimeter tube. That was a much bigger driver from the standpoint of volumes than all of the perceived notions about extra adjustment range and all that sort of stuff. Okay? So reticle visibility in many ways trumps everything, because if you look at even relatively inexpensive scopes, so I generally look at very fancy stuff, right? Partly because I'm a spoiled brat, partly because I can, and partly because that's what I enjoy shooting with, right? So when nobody's looking, when I'm not testing some new optic, when I'm not testing some new rifle, I spend a lot of time at the range just practicing, because I like doing it. And if I'm at the range just practicing, just enjoying myself, the bulk of the time I've got Q rifles and tangent data scopes, right? Like every time I show up in the range, it's a $10,000 setup. Sue me. But I enjoy using my stuff. So this year I decided I'm going to go and look a little bit. And I started doing a little bit of a survey of things in the $300 to $400 range that you mentioned earlier, Mr. Slavguns. And there's no way, there's so much now. The market is so enormous. I cannot do a full coverage. But I've looked at a little bit here, a little bit there. I've got a couple here. And I got to say, as far as optomechanical systems go, this stuff is really matured nicely. If you are setting up for that once-in-a-lifetime Western hunt, I will suggest you go up and price a little bit, and I'll give you guys a chance to respond, and after that we'll start talking about actual scopes and price ranges and stuff. But if you are, out in the woods where you don't think you're going to be shooting past maximum point blank range, essentially, because that you can do with a relatively simple reticle quite comfortably, you can. So Burris introduced this new line of full field scopes, fully redesigned. They are not OEM designed. They're designed by an optical designer for them, and then OEM'd in the Philippines. I've looked at a couple. I have the 3 to 1256 here. These are legitimately respectable scopes in different lighting conditions. They are all, I think, under 400. The cheapest one, I think, is about 200, about $200 to $400 range. And if you're not shooting very far away, unless you're trying to find, the biggest, the whitetail in the history of whitetails, has survived by hiding in the bottom of the cave behind errant pine tree in pitch blackness, etc. Unless you need absolutely extreme conditions, you can get these $300 scopes and be good for the rest of your life.
Interesting.
Okay.
So
I started looking,
So thank you for actually bringing it up. I mean, like, I actually, the fact that, so it's interesting, like, as competitors, or like, I guess I would say, like, your typical gun owner is going to spend the vast majority of her time completely zoomed in. Your competitors are going to spend a lot of her time in like those mid magnification, but you're right. As a hunter, you're probably spending a lot more time on the wider end, and that's where some of the first focal plane reticle rifle scopes, particularly those with large magnification range, they're basically useless. So I remember like one of the first ones I looked at, it was like a 3-24. That was like, okay, what's like, you can't even see the reticle until like you get to at least 5 or 6. However, what about the trend that we're seeing? Okay, like with, I believe it was like, I can't remember for the life of me which LPVO it was, but it was the first focal plane reticle LPVO, where when you get zoomed out, there's almost like this ring that goes around the outside of the reticle that disappears once you're
like
zooming.
that. Yeah, there's several like that. One of the earliest one was the 126 from SWFA. I may know a guy who helped with that design. Then EOTech has introduced that concept in their low power variables because they took this ring of death, whatever they called it, from holographic. Delta has it on their 1 to 10, which I happen to have and like very much. It is a viable concept. The only problem with it is that on intermediate magnifications, you got this fairly thick ring kind of hanging out halfway to the edge of the scope. And some people like it and some don't. I happen to not mind it.
Okay.
But I can see how some people may not like it very much. But the fundamental problem here is just to be honest with yourself and with the shots you're willing to take. Yep. As far as something you said earlier ago, that hunters spend a lot more time in low magnification. Hunters don't spend enough time in low magnifications. Good hunters do, right? I can not tell you how many times you go to the range before hunting season. Everybody's sighting in their guns, etc. Now go and talk to people. And even where I live, this is a very hunting-oriented area. I live in New Mexico. It's a hunting state. I kid you not. These are the people who shoot their rifle 3 times a year before hunting season. Okay? They barely know, a lot of them, not all, of course, a lot of them barely know which end of the scope to look at. Okay. I go and talk to them. Sometimes, they have issues, something shifted something. And they vary. Some just are using cheap crap they shouldn't be. Some have a $3,000 scope and a $15 ring. We'll talk about mounts momentarily. Others do something completely asinine, and then when you tell them, look, you need to have better mounts or you're going to have issues, they don't believe me. The mount is a mount, they're all the same. There's all sorts of shit happening. But what I realized is that in a typical month of practice, I fire more rounds than any 5 of these people put together in the entirety of their lifetime.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that is a significant difference. Because I started hunting relatively late in life, so I've gone out with people who are very good at it and have been doing it for a long time, and I always ask a lot of questions and I see what they do and I try to learn. There's a rumor out there that old people can't learn. That may be true, but doesn't stop us from trying. Yeah. And most of these guys start out on moderate magnification. They don't keep their scope on high magnification. They seldom use the highest magnification. There are guides out here who use high magnification extensively, but they never carry the gun around when it is on high magnification. As far as low power visibility goes, to be fair, the savior of front focal plane scopes is illumination. The simple truth is that during the day, for distances we have out here in the mountains, if you have a 3 to 15 scope, you don't have to keep it on 3, you can keep it on 6 and you'll probably be fine. You're not going to see anything that close to you. Everything here is skittish and far away. Yeah. Where you will occasionally be using low power is that if the light went to shit on you and you have to really dial down. And the moment you're not in the middle of the day in the brightest sun, almost any half-ass reasonable reticle illumination scheme will provide a usable aiming point. That's probably one of the reasons what I am primarily a front focal plane guy, but I am very particular about reticles for a variety of obvious reasons. If I lived back east, I'd be using a Trijicon AccuPoint 329 by 40 on any half-as reasonable hunting rifle and be done with it.
Yeah. Right. So here's a question for you. And obviously, the industry has been changing. We're seeing more and more advances of technology in there. So the two things that I can think of. So like number one, for the scenarios, I know like within like the gun game community, and I haven't shot an NRL hunter match, but since that's supposed to replicate hunting, I know competitors will have a higher magnification scope and they're going to stick a red dot on it for basically, so as long as we're kind of in line, you put your red dot on it, and then you should be close to it on the scope. And the second part of it is like, well, that's
yeah, you got that from Aaron, yes.
I don't know about from Aaron, but so then the other aspect of it, okay, so that's an example of technology being in there. The other thing you can think about, so like over the last 5 years in particular, we've seen more and more technological advances for the hunting community. So like you have like the Burris Eliminator, then you had the Sig Sierra BDX system. Then you had, well, obviously you have the whole BDC reticles, but like the Sierra 3 basically highlights the holdover points. You have the Eliminator, which ranges it and shows you exactly what a holdover. And then you have what I think is a pretty cool in between. So you have like the Burris Veracity, and the one I've been really enjoying is the XTR PS. And so like, where do you see that coming into the hunting world? And like, kind of like, does it have a place, or is it still going to be your 3-9s and like your mid-range optics and that's it?
No, 3-9, the time of 3-9s has passed. I'm just not happy about it. All this business of the blanket term for all these things is something called electro-optic integration. And we really don't know what shape it's going to take. And the final shape is going to be driven partly by the technology, because all the things that hunters dream of, we already have on my side of the fence. And with volume, it can get cheaper and reasonably get into reasonable price ranges where hunters can afford it. But what we don't know is what the regulatory burden is going to be like. There are plenty of states, Andrew mentioned earlier, I can use centerfire where I am, and other places you can only use muzzle loaders, and some other places you can only use straight wall cartridges. Some places you can use optics, some you cannot. For example, shotguns. A couple of years ago, there are some units here in New Mexico where you can only hunt with a muzzle loader. I killed my first elk with a muzzle loader. With a 1.5 to 8 scope. 8 power was plenty to shoot an elk at 330 yards. So it's not a small animal, as I learned when trying to hike out with the pieces out of my back. But it's a couple of years ago they said, okay, muzzle loaders can no longer have optics, right? Because muzzle loaders got real good. My muzzle loader shoots an aluminum tip 275 grain bullet at 2,400 foot per second, and I'm printing 4-inch groups at 600 yards. Okay, so no more optics on it. That's a regulatory impact that rifle scope manufacturers can do absolutely nothing about. So when you're asking me what is going to be integrated, we don't know. There are states where rifle scopes with integrated laser rangefinders are already illegal. A rifle scope cannot have anything that emits energy out of it going forward. Right, laser emits something, so you cannot have active ranging in a rifle scope. That's things like Burris Eliminator. As these systems get better, we will see more restrictions. We don't know what shape those restrictions are going to take. The basic combination that I would like to see for both precision shooting and hunting is a compact weapon-mounted laser rangefinder that talks to a rifle scope with an internal display like Burris XTR PS or Veracity PH, and gives me the distance that the laser rangefinder sees, and then I dial or compensate for that distance and for whatever I perceive to be the wind based on that information. But basically, what I would really like to see is to be able to see all of that without ever looking away from my scope. So right now I have a binocular with a laser rangefinder. That's what I use to glass and determine range, and that gives me ballistics, and then I get the scope and dial in this solution. I would like to get the solution without looking away from the rifle scope. Okay. But I do not know if that is going to meet any sort of a regulatory hurdles. Generally, as far as electro-optic integration for civilians goes, the companies that have been ahead of the curve here, as you correctly pointed out, are Burris/Steiner and SIG. I have some familiarity with both. They're both doing pretty good work. Some similarity in their efforts, some differences. SIG has done a lot more with laser rangefinders than Burris has. Burris needs to do more there. As far as how the display stuff was integrated, I think Burris did a very good job. And Eliminator 6, the latest, is actually very, very nicely done. But the original argument really remains. If you are not good at this, all these gadgets are not going to help you. It may make you more capable of wounding an animal, but won't really help you take one down. If you are already competent, all these additional features, capabilities are going to extend the range of what you're capable of. My basic rule of thumb is that I'm willing to take a shot in a field that's roughly half of the distance where I think I'm relatively comfortable shooting at plates, right? So competition style. I shoot matches with essentially the same rifle that I hunt with. I have 4 different fixed rifles. They all handle, feel, etc. the same. I shoot matches with one and hunt with the other couple. My daughter went on her first hunt last Saturday using a minifix. Unless I'm doing some sort of specific review of something or other, when I go out in the field, whether it's for a match or for a hunt, I'm using that exact rifle because of the familiarity. So if, let's say, I'm comfortable shooting an 18-inch plate at 1,000 yards, that means that my practical self-imposed limit on game is 500 or hopefully less, right? And I've never taken a shot at game at 500 yards. The furthest shot I've taken at an animal was just over 450. And the closest, well, I've shot pigs at about 180 yards, but on a big game animal, the closest was about 330. That's been the distances out here. I shot a couple of elk at 330 and, 310. One of them was 310. 310 and 330. I shot an antelope at 350, a sheep at 450, that kind of stuff, right? So I'm staying well within my capabilities. What if I had this dream setup that I'm thinking of, right? A compact weapon-mounted laser rangefinder that talks directly to the rifle, and I get the distances and the environmental sensors, etc. in the scope. What would that give me? I'm not the best shot in the world, but my bar is very high. I'm friends with some of the best shooters in the world. So what would that give me? Well, that basically means that maybe the practical range at which I'm willing to take a shot at the name will go up by 100 yards, maybe 150. Once you start going further out, it becomes exponentially harder, especially in the field, especially from weird shooting positions, especially in complicated terrain. If you live in the plains, you are very fortunate. You have wind indicators, right? When you're shooting at something 700 yards away from you across a valley, we have 0 wind indicators. You're so far above ground for most of the bullet flight. You kind of know what's happening with the wind right where you are, and maybe you see some mirage where the animal is. You have no indicators anywhere else, right? So it's different. Every extra 100 yards is an order of magnitude in terms of the complexity of landing a good shot.
Can I jump in with something, Mac, real quick? I really feel like if we're looking at the bulk of people who are hunting in America, and we're talking about big game, competency to run these systems is going to be a major factor of whether optics companies want to jump into this, because there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of misunderstandings from people. They use gear wrong, they call on the brand. I hear about this even now. I'm hearing a lot of people calling in, misunderstanding things. And I remember hearing the same thing when even ballistic or caliber specific holdover reticles weren't matching up for guys. And I would hear these kind of FUD guys calling the optics company saying, hey, this doesn't match up exactly, and the misunderstanding and competency factor, I really feel like a lot of optics companies need to weigh that carefully of how deep, how fast, how heavy do they want to invest in this, and are your clientele. It's not a devaluation of their intelligence. It's just a lot of people don't take the time to invest heavily into some of the systems we're talking about. That's one of my things about some of those Burris optics, Max, was still the majority of people in the match I just shot last Saturday. The majority of people that were shooting did not have a Kestrel.
Yeah.
2 people that were next to me with a Kestrel were using them wrong. Like completely wrong. They had all the best stuff. Everybody had $10,000 plus setups except for me. I shot production class. And 2 of those guys were using them wrong, completely wrong. And this is like tech that's been out for a while.
So how interesting. So what do you mean using them? What were they doing? Because I have a Kestrel. I barely ever use that fucking thing. It drives me bananas. I can't wait for the day until I don't have to use a Kestrel, which is probably early next year. So what were they doing wrong with the Kestrel?
They're holding it. They're blocking the wind. They're trying to do wind measurements goofy.
Okay.
They were taking suggested data instead of what the Kestrel was telling them. Their confidence level in their own ability to use the product and put in good information was already screwed up.
Got it. Okay.
And and these are people who, they have money. They just haven't taken the time to invest into these things. And I feel like with some of these optical systems we're talking about that have more information and the higher cost with them, people still might not invest a lot of time into that because they're like, I'm going to bag a deer at 200 or 300 yards. And then I'm like Ilya said, I'm not going to touch that thing a whole lot for the rest of the year. That rifle might sit around in the safe.
So, a couple of things. First of all, it's interesting. So what is a Kestrel? I get 2 things out of it. I get wind and density, altitude. As far as everything else, this is like 1890s technology that people are trying to peddle for $700. It's so archaic. It makes me harken back to the days of Soviet Union computers that were the largest in the world. But anyhow, as far as companies evaluating what to do and whether to jump into this, they don't have a choice. They either have to do this or they will be obsolete and they will go out of business. That ship has sailed. There's no more choice. Yeah. And the reason is very, very simple. Because the people who buy $300 scopes and go hunting every once in a while don't buy a lot of scopes. Mm-hmm. People who subsidize the entirety of this industry are the ones who are either hunting out west or dreaming of hunting out west. They are the only ones who are seriously spending money. If you don't get them, you'll be out of business.
So I think what you're saying makes sense. I will be very curious.
There's not enough money in the rest of it revolving every year.
Yeah, I'll be really curious to see how quickly this integration happens, because I'm personally just a little bit hesitant myself to even push into that, because basic analog old school scopes are still working really well for a majority of the things that I'm into. And I don't see a lot of people begging for these features. Like I think the Burris scope is cool. I think it was interesting. I messed around with it at, I don't know, was it SHOT Show or NRA or something? I messed around with it a little bit. And and I have seen exactly this many in the real world. I've seen 0. Everybody, I see more Swarovski high-end scopes than I see of the Burris. And the Burris is really cool. It's got some neat stuff. I'm just saying, I'm thinking that this is going to be a slow integration. I don't feel like it's quite as rapid. And part of that might be not just people with low understanding, but also the economy factor that Max brought up. I do feel like the economy factor might be more important than we realize. Even with those guys who are buying 3 scopes a year, they're always going to buy some scopes on 4th of July and Labor Day sales, they might slow down a little bit with the economy coming up. And a lot of us have had a lot of rifles now. Maybe we already have a lot of optics now that people have gotten into more premium optics. So I don't know, just a thought.
Well, so I mean, and here's kind of like, I mean, like you were bringing up the whole point of like technology and like reliability and all that, and I would basically say is okay.
Go ahead.
So I would say like, okay, well, you have people who can still drive a stick shift. However, I really love going the fact that I went to the range and back from the range, and all I did was hit a button, and my wifey's Tesla drove me there and back, and I was able to eat my salad. And the numbers, when we're looking about the safety aspect of it, having this newer technology does make drivers safer on the road. So from the hunting perspective, yes, we do have this technology, and I will say when the technology, once you're used to it and the technology fails, you're kind of like you're lost. And I remember I was lost the very first time the battery died in my Sig Sierra 3 BDX at a certain point because there was like no way to adjust the thing. But outside of the hunters who do point blank range, well, I think I would rather, if you're talking about taking an ethical shot or what somebody thinks is an ethical shot, I would probably lean towards the side of, hey, let's give them a laser rangefinder, and then all they have to do is dial in the distance rather than trying to have them figure out what is the holdover and have them properly dial in that solution into their scope.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I understand it. I'm just trying to put myself in um, the average purchaser's mindset, the
Correct.
regular
And
guy out
it's
there.
money. It's expensive, but I think the Veracity PH, that's why I was like really excited about it because it was like it was a workable solution for like under $1,000, and it seems like if as that technology progresses and they can get it down into a lower price point, similar to what we saw with the evolution of the affordable first focal plane 5 to 25 for like right around $500 that are actually decent enough. I think, and well, we'll ask the Dark Lord himself because I mean he definitely has a better insight into this if manufacturers are actually planning on it. But if it's literally 2 or 3 years away, that like we just have this mass adoption, and then that's going to be the full expectation. Much like even like ChatGPT and Gemini and all that stuff, even though it's brand new technology, 43% of the people right now use a large language model. It's the fastest adoption that we've seen of any type of technology. So if the prices come down, much like we saw with the affordable first focal plane reticle rifle scopes, where you couldn't find anything for $500, and now we have like 50 choices. If that's possibly going to happen as well, and then 4 or 5 years from now, we're not even going to bother looking at products that don't have some sort of integration either with an app or something like that.
You will have states that will outlaw this kind of electro-optic integration, definitely.
Why?
As far as one of the nice things about what Burris is doing is that if your batteries die, you just have a normal scope.
Yeah.
You can use like a normal scope, right? So it's a nice advantage. But what can I say? So let's do this. Think of it this way. Once you get some volume, a scope with an integrated beam splitter and a display and Bluetooth to talk to a phone is going to cost you, I don't know, $125 more than the one without it, all else being equal. It's just a game of volumes. Okay. So it's money, but it's not a huge hurdle. Anyhow, we've been at it for about an hour.
Please,
Somewhat
sorry.
complaining about my shiny head and hampered
That
down
was
by shitty
that
internet.
that was only 5 minutes.
So one of the things I want to make sure we do. The shiny head? No, shiny head is forever.
No, we were complaining about your shiny. We were making fun of your shiny head for 5 minutes.
I
but
do want.
You brought that on.
Okay, complaining for only 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah. So, for those of you who are new here, I have a website. And I maintain a list of recommendations. I'm going to share it. So I'll put it on the screen so you guys can see. Let's see. And so I have this locals community. It looks like this. Okay. Right on the right, there's this big thing called riflescope recommendations. If you click on that, it takes you to a different website. It was much easier for me to do hierarchical. It was much easier for me to do hierarchical structures by price point because the locals platform was not very good for that. What I do, I break things down by price. And if you click on any one of them, at the top of this thing, it's going to say when I last updated it. And then I go through, list a few enough familiarity with for low light, general purpose hunting, high power precision, yada, yada, yada. So generally speaking, these, if something has made that list, that means I'm confident enough to offer that as a recommendation. So it's not exhaustive by definition. Again, when I started doing this 25 years ago, it was absolutely feasible for me to look at everything the market offers. Well, that ship has sailed. So I can endorse rifle scopes that I have enough familiarity with and hands-on time with and understanding of to add as my recommendation. Doesn't mean these are the only good scopes out there. There's obviously plenty more, and the specific choices will depend on what you like. So I'm gonna pose a question to the two gentlemen here. Let's say you are outfitting a relatively standard hunting rifle, 308, 3006, something like that. You're gonna do your damnedest to not take a shot past 300 yards. Okay, you have $400 to spend on the scope. What do you do?
I'm sorry. We have how much? Your audio is breaking up.
Okay. I can't hear you, of course. My internet went to shit.
Yeah. So,
Andrew, say something. I can't hear that.
I think he said if you had $100 to spend on a scope. So we're going to start at the very, very.
I said no. 400.
Oh, thank goodness.
It sounded like 100. In which case, I was like, I don't know of anything.
My answer was going to be start over.
Sorry, we can do.
See, honestly, I think like basically for
so
around
I used to do $100 category. My answer was shop used, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If we cover every $100 range, we'll be here until tomorrow. With this internet, we might be. Let's say $400. You have to buy a rifle scope. Which way do you go? What are the options? Offer me a few options.
Honestly, I like the full field. Like if you're talking about like second full, like now that you've blown my mind, and I'm like, wow, the reticle would be completely useless, unless I'm hunting like really tiny. Okay, for example, if I'm hunting like little squirrels and rabbits and crap like that, yes, I want a first focal plane reticle rifle scope that I'm going to zoom in. But if you're talking about like standard whitetail or things like that, I like I said, playing with those full DeBurses at NRA, I was fairly impressed with them. Like I was fairly impressed with the value, and honestly, I would say like my first real scope was a full field, like back 15 years ago, and the image quality on them is pretty good, and it tracked as far as I knew, and I would take it like it with a BDC reticle.
Okay. I would say if a person is looking for second focal plane,
Andrew,
the Zerotech Thrive HD line, something in there is pretty reasonable, and you can get it under $400, so it'll fit that price point. And I'm trying to remember what the price point actually is of the Athlon 2-12 HD. Are those a little above? Are they rated at 400 now?
are you talking about Helos?
Yeah, Helos Gen 2.
The 2-12?
Yeah.
That was about $500 or $480, something like that.
Really? Okay, so something less than that, that's too bad, because that's kind of a nice... I've shot that a lot for a lot of animals. Gosh.
That's actually a nice scope, yeah.
You know what I miss? The Sturkas. Like, I mean, honestly, they're gone, but I still have a bunch of like the S5 S5s and S7s. They're pretty good. And when we were finally clearanced out, we were able to get them like a $500 scope for like $100.
So I admit that price range is a little bit of a weak spot for me.
The problem with Sturka was that they didn't know what they wanted to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a little bit of a problem with optics in that price point. That's tough for me to find something that I can get excited about on a personal level. But there's a couple Vortex options that I think give some good bang for their buck. The 3 to 15 is not something I personally would get really excited about because of the reticle. If they change the reticle around, I could probably get on that boat a little faster. I'm trying to remember if that 3 to 15 was coming. It was like 369 for a while, something like that.
Now, the one that I'm thinking of that I really kind of enjoyed was
Element
had that. It was the Helix LH, the Helix HD, the second focal plane one, but I don't remember the price point on that. Now, I will say I enjoyed
some of them squeezing under 400. Yeah,
I would say I really enjoyed the image quality and the controls and all that stuff, except one of them crapped out on me and wouldn't parallax past like 500 yards. But inside 200, it won't be an issue.
Okay, so I'm gonna give. Yeah. So I'm gonna give you a relatively unpopular answer. The basic quality of budget scopes have gotten so good that there's almost all of them from major companies for the basic eastern hunting, right? Yeah. Relatively close shots, a couple 100 yards thereabouts, will probably work fine. The trick is that you actually have to shoot. There is an interesting thing about rifle scope durability. Rifle scopes very seldom have this small. Whenever you hear somebody complaining, "Oh, my scope's shifting zero all the time," etc., usually not the scope. Scopes don't usually do that. When scopes die, it's usually catastrophic. Okay, and they typically die in one of two modes. Let's. I'm gonna sketch something if you don't mind. So I'm gonna. If you imagine a plot, horizontally it's time in service, and vertically it's the probability of failure. How likely is this scope to fail? The way this plot looks like this. Okay. All right. What that means is that if there is something wrong with it, it will either crap out quite early, or it'll last for a while until at some point something's going to wear out, or you're going to destroy it by dropping it, banging it against a tree, running over it with a truck, etc. So if you are shopping within the budget price ranges, buy a scope that is well supported by a manufacturer. Vortex Crossfire, they just released new ones, actually pretty decent. Yes. Burris, Full Field, etc. I'm not crazy about lower end Leupolds. Honestly, in my opinion, Leupold good stuff starts with the X5 and up, but then it's really good. I'm not super familiar with the less expensive stuff from Tract, but the mid-range stuff is excellent. But Vortex, Burris, I started looking right now at several different and expensive optics. There's a Winchester optics brand is kind of coming up, done by the same guys who are behind some Optics Planet things and stuff like that. And surprisingly decent. So in many ways, as you start going just a little bit higher up market, one of the big things you're paying for is QC. Well, if it has a warranty and you have some ammo, and you should practice anyway, don't skimp out on mounts. Spend some time in the range. What I do to weed out a particular scope, remember it says nothing but any other scopes. I put a scope on the rifle, put it in a soft case, throw it in the back of my truck, or in a SUV, whatever it is. I have a FJ Cruiser. It's bumpy, I go off-road a lot, and I just leave it there for a couple of months. And I shoot with it quite a lot. Different positional practice, all sorts of stuff. So that means, and if it survives all of that without shifting zero, crapping out, the mirror reticles falling out, there's all sorts of shit that can happen. It doesn't happen very much, but it can happen. If it survived all of that, and that means I've got through this first stage of what's called infant mortality in manufacturing terms. Once I get past this, it still might crap out any moment, but the probability of it going down has gone down substantially. And in terms of being able to see your target, even fairly inexpensive scopes these days have gotten surprisingly decent.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
if
about
all I had was $200 or $300 to spend, I pick up a Vortex Crossfire and Burris full field. Crossfire is made in China, full field is made in the Philippines, if it makes a difference. Go shoot with it, bag it up a little bit. If it dies, it means nothing for the rest of the product line. It just means this particular one died, they'll send me another one and I'll do the same thing.
What do you think about basically if someone is already in that lower price category? So oftentimes you'll have manufacturers like Savage, Ruger, they will package their rifles with some sort of a 3-9 or a scope like that. Do you think somebody should consider those options or get the base rifle and then spend a little bit more and get something else like those?
Get something else. So the scopes that are typically packaged with a rifle from Savage or whatever, unless it's specifically called out as some brand, these are usually the rifle scopes where the cost of manufacturing is in the $6-7 range. It's a crapshoot no matter how where in a lifetime of this device you are. Once you start getting to a $200 or $300 scope, there is some basic minimum QC and there's a brand standing behind it. None of these guys want to send out a crappy scope. Okay. The rifle scopes that are packaged with rifles are usually intended for people who it may be shooting the different county and the rifle manufacturer is assuming that particular customer will not know the difference.
All right.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So there is a question here that I want to address before move on and go a little bit higher up.
Your audio is completely garbled. Your audio is completely garbled up.
There we go. Range. So it is unsafe to glass with your rifle. Ranging is a little bit different. For the longest time, we didn't have laser rangefinders. How do you think we shot? Glassing is done with the binoculars. After you found something in the binoculars, it looks like it may be close enough to shoot, you get on a scope. Right? Animal may move, whatever else, you have to have the capability of seeing on the scope, keeping up with the range, and make a decision whether you want to take a shot. I don't want to go back and forth between a separate laser rangefinder, binocular, and the rifle scope once I am behind the gun. Okay, that's one of the reasons why it is such a big advantage to have somebody else hunting with you. One of you can be on a gun, and one of you can be on a binocular. But while you're glassing with the binocular, that's when you figure out where the animal is and whether it's safe to point the rifle that way. Okay. Unless you guys have a comment about that, we're gonna move up and rest it a little bit. We're all good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyhow, yeah, so just before we move up, I started looking at inexpensive scopes, and I'm pretty impressed with what I'm seeing in terms of retaining zero and in terms of being able to see my target. And again, Burris fulfilled this, whereas I like them.
No, I think, like I said,
sort of like the fact it's not made in China, but I gotta say, if the Chinese OEMs were not pushing the envelope as hard as they have, everybody else will work hard.
Yeah. No, I think, like, honestly, like, you hit the nail on the head. Kind of like the big things. I mean, like,
what did you say?
I would say, I think you hit the nail on the head where almost the brand and the product itself is not the main priority, because all the products at a certain price point, they will have those issues, but it's going to be the brand that stands behind it, and the support when things do go wrong. It makes sense. I mean, it makes absolute sense. And now he's frozen.
Okay, I'm glad you think it makes sense. And you just slowed down like you are a slow-moving robot. I hate this simulator so much. But anyhow, did I freeze still live? How much delay there is?
There is a good amount of delay. Ooh, a PRS question. I feel I can actually answer that.
Hate them. I'll have to find a way to resolve. It wasn't like this. We've done live streams before. This is the worst I've seen in a while. So before we move up, there is a question here from Mr. Nick DeVault. First time hopping on a live stream, but curious if you have any thoughts on the best $500 to $700 PRS entry-level scopes. Do you think Bushnell, MPAD, and Athlon Midas are top of that budget area? They're pretty good. The top of the budget area for PRS is probably this DNT, that's a newish brand. I have a scope called the One, 735 by 56. In terms of bag for the buck in the $650 range, that's probably the best right now. I don't know if you guys have played with it or not. You may have.
Actually, they just messaged me.
It surprised me with how decent it is.
I sent out, or they sent out a DNT right away. I was one of the first people to get one, and I was like, man, this thing actually is good. And I've shot it in some matches. I like it. I've shot it in some rimfire matches. The Bushnell, right. 5 of my friends got one. 3 of us had failures. That's all I'm gonna say. Either it's really odd that we all had some failures on that one, or there's something there. I'm not a fan of the Bushnell hugely, but there was a core group of Minnesota people, actually a couple of friends of mine, who had quite a bit of input on the development for that, and that was a good reticle. The reticle itself is something I thought they did a good job on. Aesthetically, it looks like a nice optic, but I think there's some manufacturing things that I don't appreciate with that particular optic. So I'm going to push hard that you take a look at the DNT 7 to 35. The Discovery 6 to 36, if you're shooting center fire, is it's in that range. There are some nuanced differences between those two, but the DNT is a little bit more refined in a lot of ways. It depends if you're cool with a 6 times rector tube system, then the Discovery might be interesting for you. If you're going high magnification, if you have to do that, but my personal recommendation would actually be to knock down that magnification. There's a very low chance you're ever going to want something that is above 25 power.
Yep.
Let's say in the last 6 matches I've shot in anything, I almost never ever go above 25 power, even when I'm spotting. If you have decent glass, and most of these ED optics do, you just don't need to go above 25 power for any reason. Even shooting a KYL, I was shooting a KYL at 540 or something like that at this last match with some pretty small targets on it. And I think I maybe pushed it up to 20 power on a Discovery 5 to 25. And so that's like a budget optic. And even then, I didn't need to have it that high. I could see just fine. I did it because I was shooting in the prone, which is a rare option when you're shooting PRS matches. Not very often do you get a prone stage. There's just so much positional stuff. Max, you probably have some opinions.
Yeah. So actually, I mean, that's a great question. And the first thing that popped in my mind is, okay, well, I need a qualifier for this, because are you budget constrained and you're looking for a $500 to $700 rifle scope, or is it meant because you're shooting PRS production and you have a total budget? Well, I think PRS centerfire production doesn't have a total, but NRL 22 and PRS rimfire, the base class, there's a limit of 1650, so that you need to have that combination of both. What I would say is, yeah, I mean, like, so if you're working within a total budget between a gun and a scope for rimfire, I would say, I honestly, I can make the justification both ways. What I just did was I went with a really, really cheap gun and as expensive an optic as I can to fit that total price cap limit. However, you can also flip it the other way. If you're really dead set on using, for the production division, a gun that's going to be, let's say, $1,000, and you can only spend X amount of money on the optic, that's going to be a different story as well.
Yeah.
Personally, my philosophy on it is this. Look, it's like if you already upped your budget to $700, I'm not going to ask, okay, well, how expensive is the gun that you're putting on there? Because realistically, if you can spend $500 more, honestly, this is my favorite competition optic right now, whether it's centerfire or rimfire, and rimfire in particular. So this is the 4-25 track toric, 47 mils of internal elevation adjustment, which means any of my rimfire guns, I can dial in to about 400 yards. Mm-hmm. You have amazing image quality. I do like the locking turrets. I know Ilya is a big fan of illumination. I actually started using it, and then you can zoom in down to, you can get a parallax down to 15 yards. So this is like a really, really, really fantastic scope for the money. And honestly, so I'll give you a scenario with this, and really where it comes down to. And I will send if you can clip this part of the conversation, I will send it to a friend of mine. So obviously, I used on my last NRL 22 match. I've been playing around with the Burris XTR PS in 3-18. I love that thing because it has a match timer in it. It has the bubble level, all the cool stuff. Except at the last match, it gave me a low battery warning. So then when I came up to the line, I pressed the button, like, crap, there's nothing happening, because I wanted to adjust the timer from 105 seconds back to 120. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I used my friend's rifle. He just built a beautiful custom rimfire rifle, shot lights out, and he put an Arcan scope on there. And it's like, having just come off of my gun, we're shooting 3-inch targets at 200 yards, and it is just so milky. So my point with this, and really where I'm heading is, look, it's like, if you've already made the investment to shoot matches, you probably spent a couple $1,000s on your gun. You're going to spend $50 on your match fee. If it's center fire, you're going to spend $100 on your ammo. Why would you cheap out and get the lowest common thing that's going to be decent enough for you for the scope? So I would say, get this. Like, legit, get the scope, make your life better. And especially look at it this way. It's like, if you're there really to compete, like, I know that I gave up 5 points at 200 yards because literally all I saw was Mirage and this Arcan scope, and similarly to D&T, you just couldn't see those targets that plate rack at 200 yards under those weather conditions. And meanwhile, I'm like, hey, just make sure it's not me. I pulled out my dead battery Burris. I'm like, yep, I can perfectly see the targets, and the gun was capable of it. So it's like, if you're going to make the investment to shoot matches and all the time and money on that, spend more money on I would say your scope is the most important factor out of that, because you're going to depend on it, because you either see your targets or you don't see your targets. And the targets that we're shooting, like, you're not aiming at a whitetail, you're aiming at, in some cases, okay, for example, like I shot the PRS regional finale. The biggest targets that we shot were 0.5 mils. Those were so 1.5-inch targets at 200 yards. Like, they're tiny, and you needed to have a good scope on there. And if you don't, it's like, what's the point?
Max, can I jump in on something with that?
Please.
if I could go back, Nick, 3 years and tell myself something, I would have put a lot more time and effort into balancing my budget rifles better. So it looks like you're using a Mossberg MVP 308.
Yeah.
You need to spend money and time on balancing your rifle, or you're going to fight that thing on every stage. Most of these kind of rifles that are set up the way the MVP is tend to be rear heavy, and you need to put some time and consideration into how to make that rifle behave and recoil flatly back towards you, or not move if you can get it heavy enough. Do something about that, and that might be one advantage to having a big heavy big heavy optic like the 7-35. But I will admit, just to say something in line with what Max said, if I could also go back 3 years, I would tell myself to take advantage of better glass and save up for those kind of things instead of using a lot of budget optics, because that optic that Max just showed, I probably will never advance beyond that optic. I'll probably be good there forever. In fact, those are on sale right now. You can get $100 off that scope right
Yes, you
now.
can. Use promo
I
code
really
GTM.
would. Yeah, yes,
or
exactly.
DLO. Either one of those guys.
Yeah, well, he's the host, so use DLO. But those
Yeah,
optics.
yeah. On this live stream, use the promo code DLO. But yeah.
Yes, DLO. I don't think you're going to advance beyond that optic for a good long while if you do, anyways. And especially with that rifle, if that's what you're running, ammo, balance, and yes, you need to have a reticle subtension that works for you. The Bushnell subtensions on that, it has 20 mils of holdover. Sometimes that's cool when I do ELR stuff, but it's actually quite busy, and there's a lot of information there that is not useful in PRS matches. And when you back off magnification, if you have rounds that miss terribly and you're like a mil low, or you have wild wind calls or something, that busy chunk of a reticle might be more than you want, and you might do better with something like the tracked reticle, where you have like just a reduced footprint for the actual obstruction of your field of view. And for me, I'm somebody who always appreciates thicker subtensions. So when I shoot matches and I'm not shooting an optic for somebody else or something, if I'm going with my stuff, I choose optics that have big, thick subtensions. Even on the small targets, that works really good for me. So that's just a preference thing.
Yeah, and honestly, the one going back to the magnification thing, like, I mean, honestly, it's like, I mean, having like, I know typically I shoot like a 25x in matches, but then like when the burst that I got was like a 3-18, I was like, okay, I'm forced to like actually use, like, let's say, and most of the time I'm between like 10 and 15. The big thing is, and I'm not sure if I haven't looked for like, I don't have extensive experience with the DNT. I have looked for it at the shows, but if the DNT is similar to the Arkans, one of the things that I can absolutely tell you that like it would be completely no to me, especially like the 7-35s and such, the eye box is critical. At least for me, the eye box is critical to stages, because in many cases, depends on your match director and stuff. You might be like, I mean, like, for example, NRL 22 on this one, we had like where you're shooting off the bottom of the tank trap leg, and it's like, or you're shooting support side and stuff. If you have like, if you're adding a smaller eye box on top of all the other issues that come as a result of using like an entry level optic like that, you're just making life much, much, much more difficult for you. And in many cases, like if you're not just in one standard position, I mean, almost like, I think like 3-9 with like that massive eye box on those and that massive eye relief would be much more conducive to shooting. And if you're just starting, I mean, kind of like the way I look at it, it's like, okay, yeah, it's like, look, if that's what your budget is, get it, do it, or better yet, ask one of your friends for like, okay, can I borrow this optic? I know for a fact that like I've lent multiple optics to my friends before. Like if you know what you want, but you can't necessarily get there, and you're friendly with people at the matches, just ask them, hey, do you have a scope or a gun I can borrow during the matches? And they'll be more than happy to lend it to you. I know, like, if you're in the Northeast, like I literally have my match gun for that day. I'll have the gun that I'm reviewing that's set up for the match just in case I want to shoot it again. And also I'll have one or two backups, and at any point in time, anybody can feel free to use it. But like, look, it's like, if 700 is your budget, I would be concerned about buying a scope and then discovering that it's not to your preferences later on, and then literally at that point you did waste $700. So it's like, see if you can beg, borrow. I'm not gonna say steal, but like, see if you can borrow one from your friends and save up a little bit more money and get something like an Athlon Aries ETR, or like, I mean, literally, it's like before any relationships or anything, like, this is the scope that I recommended my brother buy for his gun that we just set up. And I like the 4-25 more than the 4.5-30 because it has 47 mils of adjustment. So it is perfect for ELR guns. It's perfect for rimfire. And if this is the only scope you have, well, if you need to take it off of one gun, put it on another gun, it's like buy one. Honestly, I hate the fuddy term buy once, cry once, but I highly recommend it for that. Especially then if you're going to get a better gun or something. But I would say ammo, scope, like all of that is far more important. And then if you haven't started shooting PRS, full disclosure, bags, rails, tripods, all of that stuff is also going to eat into your budget as well. So don't be afraid to make friends there, and ask to borrow stuff. And the first real purchase I would make is a good scope, a decent gun. I don't have experience with the MVP. I do have a Mossberg Patriot, but it has a thin barrel. I know they're accurate enough until the barrel gets hot, and then it's like all over the map. But yeah,
when you go to your matches, Nick, everybody at a match is trying to sell something. So just ask around. You'll get a used deal on something decent.
Or actually, and if you want, like, if you have people at your match that have like experience or gone to bigger matches, I promise you there is a ton of Arkin, DNT, Bushnell, like discount certificates that are available for there. Just ask. I think I actually have like a 50% off Arkin certificate somewhere up there. People will be more than happy to share it with you. But like I said, before spending the money, like I said, purely because it's not a, hey, I'm going to get a scope that I'm going to go to the range and I'm never taking it off of the bench. I would say, yep, those scopes are completely fine. But for anybody who is doing a match, look, it's like your gun and your ammo are your cheapest expenses out of the whole experience. They are your cheapest part of the equation.
Yeah,
don't skimp out on it.
Yeah, given what you just said, I probably shouldn't mention that the cheapest scope I shot a match with is a 5-25 tangent, but okay.
I wouldn't expect anything less from you.
All
right, so he has a Miopta Optica 3-18 by 50 with MRAD. Just use that. It's a better scope than a Arkin. I shouldn't say that.
He has my radical eye design.
See, even better. It's meant to be.
That's actually a nice scope.
And honestly, 3-18 is fine because honestly, like at most of those matches, those targets are big.
Okay. All right, guys. So I appreciate the whole match discussion, but we were going to talk about hunting scopes and processing.
Well, your internet decided to crap out and you decided to bail out, so we took over.
Yeah, I knew it was dangerous to invite you people, but
I will be quiet.
I don't know what's happening with each other. This is the worst I've seen yet. It's been on and off for a few days. This is just bad.
This is actually the worst I've seen it. Like in like the 5 years we've been doing streams.
Let's say you've got $800. What do you choose for a? Yeah, $800 hunting scope. What do you go with?
Ooh. What kind of hunting? Actually, are we defining what kind of hunting East Coast versus West Coast at this point?
Oh, I specifically didn't mention it.
Okay. So at that price point.
So what do you go with? Give me a couple options.
So the two options that come to my mind right now would be that Element LHT and the Toric 1-inch, like the 3-15, and they're a bit under that 800. I like image quality. I mean, like, to me, it's a big thing, and all of those have to be.
You're talking about Toric 3-15 by 42, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or even like the. Actually, I'm not sure if it's within the price point, but like
all good options.
like a LPVO. And honestly, I would probably lean towards like an LPVO, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd not be in a hurry to take an LPVO hunting, simply because so much what happens in compromised light, you're looking at the shadows. There is an advantage to a larger objective lens.
Ooh, interesting.
LPVOs can be used for hunting, obviously, and I use it all the time, especially if you're going to have a thermal clip-on. If you're talking about any sort of a relatively traditional hunting, whether it's east or west,
okay,
exit pupil and objective diameter is how you get low light performance. And most of the big game animals we chase don't really do a ton middle of the day. Once in a while you get something, but most of the time you're talking sunrise, sunset.
Mm-hmm.
So having a reasonably sized objective lens is an advantage. So PVO would probably not be at the top of my list. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
I really wish I really wish it was 900, because around 900 there's a couple more interesting options.
Okay, tell me 900.
Yeah, then I would go for that tract. That tract 2.5 to 15. I think that's right around 900 right now.
Oh yeah, the one that you just did. Yes.
Yeah.
That's close to 1,000. That's more like 990, and I'm gonna get to that in the next category.
Minus sale price.
Yeah,
are we talking about sale
that
price?
doesn't qualify. No.
Okay.
No,
right
Ilya's right. Ilya's right.
But yeah. So.
Speaking of Myopta, there's a couple in there.
There's more than a couple. There are actually quite a few, and this is a price range where they're already quite competent. What were we trying to say?
Go ahead, Max.
Oh, that Razor LHT. What's the price on that guy? Isn't that like around like in that price point, or no, or like much higher?
Yeah. So
that's higher.
So they actually have a new one. It's a 2 to 10 by 42. That one's about 850, and it's only available, I think, from a couple of vendors. I tested another prototype. That's actually really, really nice scope. So that should be on your list. The interesting thing that happened, I remember 20 years ago when I was looking at hunting scopes, I was looking at Trigicon, AccuPoints, and all that, and they looked so overpriced because they cost about $600-650 for the 3 to 9 by 40. And then everything else got more expensive, and that Trigicon AccuPoint made in Japan is still $650-700.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, if you want a nice, light Japanese scope with an illuminated, fiber illuminated dot, never need batteries, it weighs, I think, 14, 13 ounces. It's been made forever. It is robust. It is reliable. If you're hunting back east, and you can afford to spend in the $700-ish price range, I would get a Trigicon AccuPoint 9 by 40 with a mil dot reticle. It has a good thickness. It has a center illuminated dot. If you want to do some holdover 9 power, you can. That would probably be my choice.
Veracity? Aren't they just
partly because the stupid thing is so light? There is this new Vortex Vintage DLHT 2 to 10 by 42, which is tight focus. Okay, so that is quite good. This price range is also interesting because relatively commonly, not quite yet, but relatively commonly, you can find some Burris Veracity pH stuff in there.
Okay.
Though
I'll
touch on that momentarily. So this is very good. This price range is also interesting in that this is about where you start seeing you can be pretty confident dialing with. So Razor DLHT has a locking elevation turret. That turret doesn't have very good feel, but it has very widely spaced clicks and tracks like every time. Okay. I don't think I've ever seen one that didn't track. Lord knows I've seen a lot of those scopes. Okay. So all of a sudden now you're getting increasing requests. Even if you have a relatively modest efficient second focal scope, you can dial. And if the design has good enough tracking, robust turrets, and this price range, you're already getting there, all of your purpose, a choice of optics.
Okay. Your audio got really garbled.
Yeah.
DLHT is Japanese, Acupoint is Japanese. I really beginning to step up over there.
What's your opinion?
Kind of a little bit of a breaking point. But one of the things you'll notice is that I have not recommended yet single front focal scope. Opinion on what?
What's your opinion of some of the ride-on optics that are in that sub $900 price point?
I can't figure out what's happening with ride-on. If you asked me 6 months ago of which company, if I were to choose which company is in my opinion is not likely to survive the market downturn, ride-on would be at the top of that list. The simple answer, I have no clue. The one guy I knew from there is no longer with ride-on. They're still coming along. I'm not seeing any product development. I'm not seeing any innovation. I'm not seeing any investment in QC. I'm seeing many sales. That does not instill me with confidence. Now, I could be wrong. I don't have any real insight, but I'm not seeing anything there other than the race to the bottom, and that never ends well.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're amongst their higher line, they're 2 to 12, which is actually the Blackhound. The Blackhound 2 to 12, Japanese made optic. That is not a bad optic. Hunting optic.
Yeah, I tested that one optomechanically. It's a very, very nice scope. They made some configuration mistakes with it, but it's relatively heavy, and there are other options. That's the basic problem. So.
And I guess now that I'm looking at it,
and let's say we're getting past $800. What we're looking at?
So above $800 now is what you want us to recommend?
Out to $1,200 range and see what options you think are viable. I know one that you're going to come up with because you should.
I'll let Max go first.
Want me to spell it out for you?
The Veracity pH?
No, well, Veracity pH track 2.5 to 15.
Oh, Andrewscope, yeah.
So just to let you guys understand, the number of scopes that goes through my hands every year is somewhere between ridiculous and obnoxious. They come and they go. I don't know how many scopes I have. I have 100 rifles, and I probably have 3-4 times more scopes than that. And they come and go. Half the time, I don't know where they are, etc. Some stay. For me to keep 2 of essentially the same scope is almost unheard of. Wow. And I actually have 2 of the 2.5 to 15 by 44 track toric scopes. Okay. It's a nice sweet spot of a rifle scope. We talked earlier about, okay, how do I set up a rifle to do a little bit of everything? East, west, yada, yada, yada. Well, something like the front focal plane tracked toric 2.5 to 15 by 44 is pretty much it. There's a little bit of a weight penalty. It's not a lightweight scope. Its corporate cousin is a Maven RS 1.2. They use a different turret, so that one's a little bit lighter. They're very similar scopes. Tracked is a little bit less money. Covered windage, locking, elevation with zero stop, good amount of adjustment range, decent reticle visibility. I prefer the Eagleman reticle. They both work. I use Meridianums. Pretty easy to use all the way up to 15. Tracks like a champ. I've taken shots with it. I've taken 30 shots with it. I can keep it on 4 power and roam the eastern woods. Not that I've ever done it, but I imagine I could. I probably wouldn't. I'm lazy. I'm much more likely to sit in the blind, but in theory, I could. I could hike up the mountain with it, and I have hunted Wyoming with that track 2.5. It just works. And it is sort of a harbinger of what you get into this $800 to $1,200 range. And there's the answer to the question I get asked about rifle scopes more often than all others put together. Where do you get the most for your money? That's the price range. This is the breaking point. Anything more expensive than this, you are getting more performance, but you are getting into diminishing returns when it comes to hunting scopes. Precision is a little bit different.
Yeah.
When it comes to scopes, this $800 to $1,200 range, where rifle scopes like Burris Veracity, Track Toric 2.5 to 15, and quite a few others live. The second focal plane, the Razor HDLHT 3 to 15s live roughly in that range. Leopold's VX5 HD 3 to 15 by Shoe lives in that range. This is start getting to the point where I actually like and recommend Leopold's. One of the best hunting scopes Leopold currently makes is a Mark IV HD, which is tactical. Fuck it. Front focal plane, Mark IV HD 2.5 to 10 by 42 with illuminated T article. Having a spectacular hunting scope across the board. No, it doesn't have parallax. It has good depth of field. It's lightweight. You can hunt east. TMR reticle is visible on all magnifications just fine, right? Anytime you get into spending more money than this, you're paying more to get increasingly less. This inflection point in the performance to price curve, it keeps on shifting around a little bit. But thanks to the inflation that we've had for the last few years, I know the government has been telling us there's no inflation for 4 years, but we had a little bit. Thanks to inflation, this inflection point has stayed at about $1,000 ballpark, plus minus 200. And arguably, this is the most pertinent price range for a serious hunter. You can go and pay $5,000 for a Schmittenbender. Like, I love the 3 to 18 meta. It's wonderful scope. Is it better performing than the stuff I just talked about? Yeah. Is it worth the money? Well, if you can afford to spend it, yeah. But in the grand scheme of things, no. Just no. When we talk about match shooting, I always shoot these days. I always shoot with tangents. Why? I like tangents, and I have 3 of them, and they are legitimately better. Do you have to have a tangent to shoot daytime matches? No. In the 8 matches this year, I've only run into, I think, 2 occasions where I could see plates that other people with lesser optics could not. Did it make any difference for scores? No, nobody gave a shit. Not enough of a difference. If you hunt in the last 6 milliseconds of available light, maybe you need a little bit more of a low light scope. But even then, something that flies under the radar all the time is that if you go on your optic and you start looking around for various slightly discolored, the Schmidt and box. It is a spectacular low light scope. This is the same Schmidt that used to be $3,000 some years back, and Schmidt moved on and made more sophisticated optical systems, etc. In terms of pure image quality in low light at moderate ranges, this is still almost as good as it gets. It's $1,200. Right? Okay. You see where I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is the inflection point. If you are a serious hunter and you're setting up a rifle, and you're not a gun guy who also hunts, that's me, right? If you're a hunter who needs a gun to hunt,
yeah,
what you owe to yourself is to not go and spend time with $300 scopes, $400 scopes, $500 scopes. Save your pennies for a little bit, jump into this $1,000-ish price range, shop some sales, look around a little bit, spend $1,000 roughly on a nice optic that will cover everything you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Spend $100, $120 on a really nice set of rings. Mount it very, very carefully, wet mount it if you can. Go hunt. Go practice with the gun and hunt.
A couple other
Anything
things.
More than that. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry about the delay. Yeah, a couple other things that came to mind while you were talking. There are a couple GPO options that maybe would have snuck in here, and then the ARC from Telson. Mm-hmm. The ARC 2.5 to 15. It depending on how particular a person gets about reticle design. Like I said, I have a preference towards the tracked. I just like that one more. Even the Eagleman one, I do actually like that Eagleman reticle a little bit more. But the Telson, I think the 2.5 to 15 is in this price point, isn't it?
Yes.
It's on the lower end of it. It's a little bit less, and the Telson is a second focal plane design. The ARC is second focal plane.
Yeah.
So it's actually a very nice scope, but I don't bring it in my recommendations as much since the only Telson I've spent a lot of time with is the 3-18 by 50 Toxin.
Yeah.
And that's a scope my daughter used last weekend for her antelope hunt. So I can recommend that one without any reservations, but it's about $1,500.
Okay.
Most of the time. So the ARC from Telson, I've seen prototypes. I've played a little bit. It looked like an extremely respectable design. But for me and remember, I have a very good relationship with Telson guys. I think they're lovely people. I don't care. For me to be able to endorse a scope, I have to have enough hands-on time with it.
Mm-hmm.
The only Telson scope I have enough mileage with to endorse is a 3-18 by 50 Toxin. Okay. So I've seen most tracked scopes. They don't very well for the price range. But I will go on the record that of the entire tracked line, my favorite is a 2.5 to 15 for a variety of different reasons. But partly this is one of those scopes where the final product is more than just the sum of the features. Everything just comes together well.
Yeah.
There are a few designs like that out there. That's one of them.
Let me.
And it's interesting that most of the scopes like this, they do exist again right around this price to performance inflection point. Go ahead.
Let me ask you about a very particular optic, if you've had time with it or not. I did a review for the Right-On 3-18. It's from the X7 series, or formerly called the X7 Conqueror series, and I did the T3 reticle. The T3 reticle is a large center dot with not much obstruction to field of view. I actually really, really like that design for hunting.
And
so are you frozen me? I assume you're talking about the Right-On 3-18 by 50 X7, right? The Japanese scope.
Yep, and it's the T3 reticle specifically, not the other reticle. The T3 makes a big difference for a crossover scope that can do a little bit of hunting, a little bit of competition.
I can't in good faith. So that's at its core, it is the same scope as the Telson toxin. It's the same Japan Optics Limited scope in many ways.
Yep.
There are a couple of issues. Telson got the slightly newer version, so there's some of the stuff on the inside, some of the coatings are different. Have you ever tried to get customer support from Raytheon?
Say that one more time.
As a consumer, not as a gun blogger.
Say that one more time. You broke up when you said that.
Max.
Yep. Sorry. I have my dog is really wanting. Thank you very much.
We'll be wrapping up shortly.
Pleasure.
I think we're gonna. Yeah, Max has said he has to bail out.
Thank you kindly, and I will talk with everybody soon. Thank you for having me, and I would love to be in this conversation, but don't want to clean up dog.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to do the second half of this next week when I'm gonna be in a hotel with better internet. But so on Raytheon, so here's the basic thing. For shits and giggles, I, under different name, tried to get customer service from Raytheon. Not an enjoyable experience. And then I had a couple other people tell me, so I'm basically off of the whole Raytheon thing.
Sure.
It's I don't generally go and check customer service with different brands, but when somebody tells me that, multiple people tell me that had a hard time getting some sort of a support, I'll go and check. And if it looks like support has been an issue, I'm basically not gonna bother. There's too much competition. Yeah. All right, so let's do this. I've been at it for about 2 hours, and because of my retarded internet connection, it's been absolutely torturous, for which I do apologize. So we're gonna take this question from Devolve, and I'm gonna do a part 2 of this with actual hunting scope recommendations. A week from today and Thursday, I'll be in Dallas for work. So I'll be sitting in a hotel, and I'm gonna do a part 2. You are more than welcome to join me. Again, so I do apologize for the internet connection quality for this one. It's just been absolutely ridiculous. I will answer this one last question from Mr. Nick DeVault. Possible controversial question, but when looking at mounts, the Arrow Precision Ultralight compared to nice rings I have seen, would the Arrow suffice for hunting application? So I like Arrow Precision products quite a lot. I use a lot of their upper and lower receivers and quite barrels and their own ballistic advantage and all that. Quite a few other things. But their ultralight mount is unmitigated dog shit. Okay. It's just bad. It's badly designed, and then once you start making it, it doesn't get better. So will it suffice? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. A bunch of people are going to come out of the woodwork and tell me they've been using it forever. It works great. When you're dealing with mounts, you're basically playing a lottery. And all you're trying to do is to minimize the probability of having a problem with the mount. If you're trying to minimize the probability of having a problem, don't use Arrow ultralight mount. There are many, many scopes out there that cannot tolerate it at all because it is oval in cross sections, squeezes scope tubes in retarded ways, that's asymmetric and inconsistent, causes tracking issues and also zero retention issues and all sorts of other shit. Just a shitty mount. Okay. Where was I? There's a question earlier from Mr. Jamie Vinegar. Have you evaluated the Toric 420x50? I have. I don't know if you have, Andrew.
Different.
You have any familiarity with the 420 Toric? Okay. So I have in the past. It's a very, very nice scope in many ways. It's robust, optically clear, etc. Field of view is a little bit narrow, and it's relatively heavy. I think the presence of the 4 to 25 by 50 makes the 4 to 20 relatively obsolete. I think the 4-25 by 50 is just a better scope.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. At this point, I'm gonna have to wrap up, and I'm gonna go reset my router and do some diagnostics and try to figure out why my internet is so retarded. So again, next Thursday, about the same time, I'm gonna do a part 2, hopefully with better connection. I apologize about how this went. Andrew, thank you for joining me on short notice.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it, and thank you all for bearing with us, and good night.
All right, later.